Good morning. I am in your kitchens. I can smell the zest of your oranges crackling and crinkling out into the atmosphere. I can hear your yogurt pots clinking, plastic against metal. It is the morning. Welcome, one and all, to today's reading of the Major Arcanum number 20, Justice. And we're having, of course, our exploration aided by our spiritual guide of the filmmaker Radio Waves, Alejandro Jodorowsky. Let's get his name right there. And this has been one of the favourites of mine, the number 20 of the Major Arcana. Where could they be? Well, following his advice, I have held mine right here. And I say mine, or I've got two, I should say, because I like to compare two decks. We've got the old Piatnik deck here. Let's see, fascinating card. And there's a lot of interesting things going on and many differences with this one. See, I'm going to try and do this, floating the two right here. What I've forgotten to do is leave the image search, but I'll leave that on the YouTube video when it's uploaded. But do make sure, if you are interested, please do Google image number 20 Major Arcanum Justice, and it should be the Marseille deck. Of course, there are many different kinds of tarot decks. So, very quickly, just a very sort of simple visual check. Now, this is quite difficult with my new microphone placement. Now, Facebook videos aren't celebrated for their quality. So I'm not sure how much of this you can get, but the Piatnik has some amazing, roughly hewn figures and shapes. Look at the woman on the left side, should be the left side of your video, and have a look at her eyes. There's a lot of skewed eyes in the early Marseille deck. Have a look at the eyes also of the, I can call that an angel. Everything is skewed, nothing is straight, everything is at an angle, nothing is symmetrical. And there are some interesting reasons why this could be so. Well, this of course is a woodcut, so it's a more imprecise, imperfect craft. And I think the devil being in the details is the detail there is imperfection. Humans, of course, and their depictions of divinity are by necessity imperfect, leaving our imagination to do a bit of work for us. But there's a big difference between this, of course, and the Marseille deck. Not to limit your interpretation of this, but have a look at the increased complexity. There's more spiraling going on. In this deck, there's more sort of feedback between the human figures, or the lower figures, and the higher figure, the divine figure. Many more spirals going on in the wall, or the kind of conch shape of the blue figure at the bottom. My arm is aching. And the clouds above. So an idea that to reach into mystical knowledge is to enter a mode of swirling, snail-like. In terms of development, educational development, the stages of, say, musicianship, it's helpful to think of a spiral, either going up or going down. So you never really develop in a clear chronological way. Instead, you meet yourself a stage up from where you were before. So you were here, going around the helix. Oop, you know what I mean? You can see yourself from where you were, and it's sort of an evolution up, or metamorphosis of who you were, not discarding who you were. You can see below and see above. Had something to say there, but I promptly forgot it, which makes me think it might be the right time to get onto Jodorowsky's reading. Often and reliably and irritatingly interrupted and punctuated by my interpretations, of course. So I like to turn off the camera, actually, or at least my viewing of it, so I can get in the zone. Okay. So the beginning is Jodorowsky saying that all of the energy of the tarot is collected in the number 20 in the divine justice figure. 20 being the sum of 4 parts, 5 being a strong, stable number pertaining action in the tarot. This is seen to be towards the end of the climb of the mountain in terms of the sequence of the Arcana. Oops. Okay. So, number 20, Le Jugement, Judgment, New Consciousness, Irresistible, Desire. Here's the page there. All the tarot's energy is concentrated in the card of Judgment, following the receptivity of the moon and the new construction undertaken in the sun. We see here the birth of a consciousness framed by a single principle on the left and a male principle on the right. This emergence, summoned by the angel and his trumpet, is introduced to us as an irresistible desire. The work has been realized. The anima and animus attain peace through prayer. By themselves they have created the divine androgyne, or androgyne, I don't know how to say that word, who obeys the call of supreme consciousness represented by the angel. There's a lot to draw out here. So let's start with irresistible desire. The whole picture is introduced to us as an irresistible idea. This is something that really caught me about this card. How can divine justice be desired? I can't quite recall where, but I do remember, having grown up in the Catholic Church, that rejoice, for the time has come. God's judgment is on us. The divine allotment. I really love this word, allotment, in a sense that you are allotted, you are given your next stage in the spiritual life. It also gives an idea of a space as well. Divine allotment. I mean, I imagine being on an allotment, literally a place to garden, grow things. And it's your place and you have earned it. And a lot of my life have been spent running away from the Judeo-Christian ideals of original sin and sexual fear. But this is something that still interests me. Why would divine judgment be something as an irresistible desire? Part of me thinks relates to the beautiful Lutheran idea, the idea of Martin Luther, that you are judged by faith alone, that your faith in whatever, I'm going to put it into my language, your faith in anything, your commitment to anything is enough. That's all you need to get the keys of heaven. I'm not interested in heaven and hell. I'm interested in what people thought about heaven and hell. So it's very curious to me that you could simply be saved and guarantee the keys to heaven simply by having a commitment or having opened oneself out to engagement or divine engagement, contact. Jesus said, of course, you have to be born again. That's right before one of my favourite verses. You can hear the sound of the wind. The wind makes sound, you can hear it, but you don't know where it comes from or where it's going, and thus it is with the people of the Spirit. It's a wonderfully vague, very Jewish kind of language, very, elusive, but very suggestive without giving it to you directly or quickly. The work has been realised. This emergence, summoned by the angel and his trumpet, is introduced to us as an irresistible desire. The work has been realised. So part of the potential relief of divine justice is just knowing that someone has made the decision for you, that it's actually come to an end, that your bodily, material struggles have finished. But I think more to the point, the justice, I imagine, is simply the concept of the unknown. And I want to be very clear about this. It's the unknown as something that's so profoundly beyond you, but it is a knowledge. It is something out there that somehow knows or guides it. It doesn't even have to be metaphysical in any way. It's just a simple symbol for you not knowing something. And that in itself is a kind of confirmation. What can I know? What should I know? Don't ask me. What do I know? So the sum up in a phrase, the divine justice, number 20 of the major arcanum. What do I know? Don't ask me. It's a way of resigning yourself to fate, in a way. Obviously, there's the problem of being convinced that you're being saved, and that's the whole split into Calvinism and Lutheranism or Lutheranism. How do you know you know? How do you know you're saved? That's a problem for another time, maybe. Good other section of the Bible in the Gospel of Matthew in 7, which I'm going to paraphrase very badly. You look at the speck of dust in your neighbour's eye, and you forget to realise that you have a plank of wood in your own. So it's to get away from this idea of us humans making a judgment. What do we know? How can we know? Someone must have. There's at least this idea that it's not for us to know. But then there's a problem of hubris of assuming you're saved, which is obviously very problematic if you're thinking about being a good person. So let me be very clear. I know I've laboured the point, but it's important. The justice is a kind of unknowing. It's the corner of knowledge that you cannot even begin to imagine the colour or the taste of. It's an alienating kind of knowing that's not ours. It tells us who we are, it puts us in our place. And if anything, wherever they gone, these figures seem to be more or less quite happy where they are. We don't know about the figure in the middle. We'll get to that. Especially the gentleman on it's my right. The gentleman on the right looking up. He knows his place. That could be worrying. We don't reach for the cosmos. We don't work our way up. But actually, it's sometimes quite nice to know where you are in society, what your roles are, what your calling is. Will you shut up about the unknown? No. Last thing. This kind of unknowing, I still believe is within us. I still think part of us knows what it is. It's not. I like to think of a skin. We can see the epidermis. Can't really see the dermis. The dermis beneath the epidermis. But there's the hypodermis. Terribly laboured point, but the lowest part of the skin, a third layer, the subcutaneous material or tissue. And it's like the unknown is the very stuff which holds us together and doesn't like to tell us it's there, or doesn't speak in words. It's kissing our body's surface, and our skin sometimes tingles to it, but it's very, very, very difficult to articulate this in any way, even musically, even with abstract ideas. All right, let's move on. This being emerging from... No, we can't move on. Animus and anima. Animus and anima. So, these two terms, of course, are Latin, but are based on Jung's ideas. Carl Jung. And the animus and the anima are basically male, female spirit. And I really, really believe that the figure in the middle, what really resonates with me with this card is the figure in the middle. To me, this is some externalized, or it's some meeting point between the male and the female. Now, this could be the relationship itself. I love you, but I also love the relationship with something beyond us, something that's not for us to contain. It could be something I've talked about before, the mystical ideal of meeting the other gender and becoming so highly balanced that you contain the opposite. So you contain, as a man, a mystical vagina or a cosmic womb. I think that's genuinely possible via meditation. I think the Manipura here, this solar plexus chakra, the Muladhara is another one from below the pelvic floor. These are just ideas of trying to meet the other side and become whole. What we're trying to do with spirituality is become whole. We're trying to contain, all the universe is in the tarot, in all the sequence, so this idea of trying to get a balance. And balance isn't sort of compromise. It's not sort of like, oh, we'll take a little bit of this and take a little bit of that and we'll chop it up and it will be nice. Balance can be quite rough and have its own kind of, like the woodcut, its own roughly cut, roughly hewed approach, which might involve self-loss, ego, abrasion, or abrasion to the ego. Okay. Haven't even got past the first paragraph. Great. Let's keep going. This being emerging from the depths has been endowed with a light blue body. So this is the angel in the middle, or the figure in the middle. Just hold that out again. This being emerging from the depths has been endowed with a light blue body that cannot help but bring to mind that of the devil. Furthermore, if we superimpose the two cards, we shall see that the devil's legs, and if I was prepared, I would have got the devil out. The devil's legs adapt almost exactly to the body of the blue being of Judgement, whereas the bodies of the imps extend that of the two figures in prayer. There is a clear triad going on in the devil card number 15. That's a delightful card for another time. Another coincidence, just like the devil, the angel of Judgement seems to be sticking out his tongue in order to play the trumpet. But while the devil's tongue is red and aggressive, perhaps charged with cunning and sarcasm, the angel's tongue is permeated with wisdom and kindness. The devil is teasing. It's doing something not necessarily up to no good. It's something prickly, something working in right angles. It's not quite human. There's something way too straight about the devil. That's cutting and unorganic. Whereas divine justice, very much a parallel of the devil in the triad figure, and the shape, the composition of the card does seem to have some kind of tongue thing going on. It could be an extension, the trumpet, the extension of the angel's tongue, tools being an extension of the body, like how a guitar or your phone or whatever is kind of a part of your body now. It's so much embedded within your skin. It's an instrument, like an extra limb. And the trumpet seems to come out quite naturally out of the angel's mouth. But there's a confusion. Is it the mouth or is it the trumpet? And I mean, it does look a little bit like a tongue. And that sort of tickles me a little bit. But, your judgment doesn't come through words then, clearly. If it would, then you can't put words into a trumpet. It's very difficult and it sounds silly. Another coincidence, just like the devil, I'll just repeat that. The angel of judgment seems to be sticking out his tongue in order to play his trumpet. But while the devil's tongue is red and aggressive, perhaps charged with cunning and sarcasm, the angel's tongue is permeated with wisdom and kindness. It does seem a little bit more altruistic, so to speak. The angel's sort of serving something. The devil's just serving himself or themselves. The blank gaze, the blank look of the... I mean, there's a lot of really peculiar expressions and gazes going on in the tarot in general, in the Marseille tarot. A lot of sort of cross-eyed and weird glances, but the Freudian slip, but the judgment figure does seem to be quite impassive, sort of resolute in a sort of out-of-body sense, meaning you're doing something, or it's doing something, it feels very natural, feels like it's flowing, it's not really trying. That Taoist ideal of effortless action. Got past the first page. Bang. Keywords: vocation, call, birth, renaissance, rebirth, consciousness, work, union, family, transcendence, to emerge, music, to prompt. I really like this word coming up, and I don't know how to pronounce it. After a sojourn, S-O-J-O-U-R-N, after a sojourn in the depths of the subconscious, so the rest of the tarot, you're just sort of paddling around, going into different caves of your subconscious. So sojourn is like a day's trip, or no longer than a day's trip. So un giorno, only a day, so to speak. After a sojourn in the depths of the subconscious, after a task that may have been performed in pain, or in any case in the shadows, a new life is awakening, as if for a birth or a resurrection. We think of the Last Judgment when the dead come out of their tombs. The Last Judgment when everyone is judged for the final time. Delightful idea from medieval Europe. When everyone was judged and reborn, we would all be reborn male. Yeah, fantastic. So we're in that milieu right now. We're in a time when people really thought these things, very uncomfortable things. But we've got to give them credit for actually being the same species as us. We still basically share the same physical matter, same DNA. That's the challenge of the Marseille deck, in my opinion, to see the humanity of our ancestors. We think of the Last Judgment when the dead come out of their tombs. Everything that is hidden or in gestation comes to the surface in aspiration for a new world. Aspiration, breathing towards a new world. Breath is pneuma in Greek. Breath, wind, spirit, same word, pneuma. This powerful desire to evolve resonates like divine music. What this arcanum suggests is that a force defying death is at work in our very lives, immaterial and immortal consciousness, with a capital C. I've never liked this word, consciousness. Maybe I'm just transferring it or tracing over it. UNKNOWN. Did that spell unknown or unknown? I'm not sure, but that's my point in tracing the word unknown over the idea of universal consciousness, which doesn't sound that, for me, that delightful. Just realised I left my wardrobe open. Fantastic. You can't see my football scarves. It manifests in the form of an imperious call to live in a new dimension. The angel is looking straight ahead and with his trumpet at his mouth, he symbolizes the announcement of this awakening. The particular light blue cloud surrounding him could represent the opening of the mind. The same opening appears on the head of the being emerging from the depths of the earth. The mental emptiness he has realized is symbolized by the small central dark blue disc, which revolves around itself in the surrounding light blue whirlwind, in order to then remount the 22 grades of the trumpet up to the golden egg, etched on the angel's head, which represents God in action. We have to pause there yet again. The egg on top of the head. Now, this is slightly too high up to be the third eye. You cannot. You could call it the point, possibly the connection to verticality. That's a bit of a mystery to me. I don't really know what's going on there. If we were looking at the older Piatnik deck, or if we were busily throwing it to the floor, we may just be able to get a glance of the jewel or the emblem at the top of the angel's head. What is it? Is it divine consciousness? Is it the pineal gland, which is what many people sort of localize as the third eye in the middle of the brain? Where have I stopped? The golden egg etched on the angel's head, which represents God in action. God in action is the golden egg on top of the angel's head. We should note that the horn part of the trumpet from which the music emerges is like a repetition of this yellow oval. The sound reproduces the divine nature. The beautiful is the sparkling of the true. The flag brandished by the angel includes a flesh-coloured cross that divides the orange background into 4 squares, the 4 natural elements or the 4 energies next, symbolised by the animals of the world, which is 21. 21 is the world in the major arcana. We could conclude from this that the flesh-coloured cross indicates that the vocation of the human being is simultaneously to live horizontally in the world, with a union of the essential androgen between the right and the left, and vertically from earth to sky. We could see the flag as the summation of the arcana, very, very sort of geometrically representing 20, of course. This is a nice idea in a sense that shapes represent things, pictures, not letters. There's no speech bubble coming out of the justice's mouth. Nothing very obvious. And this is the time when, lo and behold, to state an obvious thing, but most people were illiterate when they were reading the Marseille Tarot. Most people, of course, couldn't read, but that's an obvious thing. What does that actually mean? What does that imply? It implies, I'm really bothered by my cupboard door here, that implies that I've lost my train of thought there. You go to a pub in medieval, for example, France, and you don't know the name of the pub, at least how it's written, but you go and see a sign outside the pub, and it's called the Three Hens, and so on and so forth. So the world is very much more pictorial than linguistic or language-based. I think this gives people more imagination to explore things using pictures. I think this is a huge thing we've lost nowadays. And I am going to, for the pride of Oxford United, Club Atlético de Alcântara, and of course Belenenses, I'm going to show you my football scarves by closing my cupboard doors. Let the divine wisdom of the tarot breathe to you from the point into the rest of your bodies, epidermis, dermis and hypodermis, as I gently close my cupboard doors. The flag brandished by the angel includes a flesh-coloured cross that divides the orange background into 4 squares. The 4 natural elements or the 4 energies, next symbolised by the animals of the world. When someone draws this card, it means that he or she has been called. Difficulties will arise if, for one reason or another, the individual cannot manage to respond to this call. I am called Pascal. My name is my calling. I haven't chosen my name. You don't choose your calling. It's curious when you learn a foreign language. Ich heiße I am called. People call me this. You can hear people calling my name. Please forget I am called. It's literally what people call me. That's how the word originates. This sounds bafflingly obvious to say this, but we come from the spoken word first, not the written word. We don't say I am written, Pascal. I am written, whatever, Elisa, whatever. So what happens in a reading? In a reading, judgment frequently recalls the circumstances of how the person receiving the reading experienced his or her birth, which you didn't choose. Of course, this includes all the possible variations of a problematic labour, a disturbed gestation, or a difficult situation surrounding the actual moment of birth that could have formed an obstacle. I'd like to repeat that. So the birth, the circumstances surrounding it, including all the possible variations of a problematic labour, a disturbed gestation, or a difficult situation surrounding the actual moment of birth that could have formed an obstacle. Elvis's guilt on the miscarried twin brother, for example, which haunted him, supposedly, for all of his life. The person consulting will then live, to one degree or another, consciously or not, as an individual who was not wanted, whose birth was not intended. The neurosis of failure, despair, or incomprehensible difficulties will ceaselessly tug this individual to the bottom towards the floor of the tomb from which he or she has been summoned to emerge. The meaning of this arcanum consists of discovering through therapeutic work or other means that every individual being that is born is absolutely wanted by the deity or the universe that allowed him or her to be engendered. The difficulties the individual will feel around the desire to live or artistic or professional vocation are so many forms of resistance to his or her deep nature, to the level of consciousness he or she and all of us can offer the angel. The angel gets something from us. This card may also appear to point out a problem related to the act of judging or being judged. If the call is of divine origin, whoever stands up as judge lies. Jugement, in French, mentir, to lie. Jugement, the judge lies. The judge speaks a falseness or a falsity. There is no human judgment that holds any value here. There is no human judgment that holds any value here. For a couple, this card is urging them to undertake a shared task, a real or symbolic child, suggesting that the meaning of the male-female union is to produce a third element, bathed in love and awareness. The play of looks is interesting. The woman is looking at the man and or the child. She represents human love and love of work, while the man, his eyes lifted towards heaven, embodies divine and cosmic love. The angel is gazing directly at us. His action is addressed to everyone. He reminds us that, for want of recognizing our deep desire and the divine desire that prompts realization, we are only the living dead. For want of recognizing our deep desire and the divine desire that prompts realization, we are only the living dead. If you are out of control, if you cannot control your destiny, you're living as a zombie. It's not your rules you're following, it's your neuroses, your psychosis or whatever. The samskara, or the knots in your consciousness, the trauma, is what's driving your actions rather than your own will, which is effectively the living dead, as a cheerful thought for a Saturday morning. Judgment finally refers to the emergence of a desire, a vocation, or a call to some kind of order, a calling. Hear the music from the clouds. This is a card of ecstasy, profound rebirth, and prayer immediately granted, where energies are simultaneously rising from earth to heaven while descending in the opposite direction. We should recognize in this card the last step before the total realization of the world. Again, the world is the card after Judgment. And if Judgment spoke, here we go. Jodorowsky entering the archetype of Judgment, if you can call it an archetype, speaking the sound of the trumpet. You have flowed with the black river of Arcanum 13, the nameless arcana, otherwise known badly as death. You have thrust your roots in the devil's darkness. You have been the demon sadly lifting his torch as if nostalgic for the light. While you were wandering at the bottom of the abyss, I did not forget you. Now I can enter into contact with you, but only little by little, with infinite gentleness and patience, because I am strong. You can unite with me only if you have been prepared, if you have made the journey to the depths of your being, if you have known all the facets of your masculinity and your femininity and reconciled them in balance. I bring you light from the entire universe. My power requires you to have made peace with yourself, so that the new tree has begun growing from the deepest regions of your subconscious. May your entire being be plunged in infinite prayer and all your cells know peace. May you be like these naked figures who have placed all their trust in and accepted what is higher. Without the deity, I could not exist. When the individual becomes a veritable, trusting, tranquil child, then and only then do I appear as a complete certainty, as the call that has been echoing since the dawn of time. Among the traditional interpretations, we have I still don't understand why Jodorowsky has done this, inserted these terms in the middle of the Judgment speaking. Seems like quite an interruption, and it's quite a long list of words. I don't enjoy reading this bit, but we'll get through it. Call. So this is the first word of this kind of vocabulary list of the traditional interpretations. Call. Irresistible desire, realization, announcement, good news, vocation, triumph, renown, future project, to give life, birth of a child, healing, music, openness, hatching, work of a couple, father, mother, child, cell, dependent love for parents, birth conditions of the consultant, refusal to act one's age, that's a good one, emergence of something buried, grace, awakening of consciousness, sublimated devil, streak towards the light. Something that comes to mind is the certainty of the artist, so to speak, the profound comfort or the confidence of certain artists to keep going with no recognition in their lifetimes. Classic example is our ear-cutting friend, Van Gogh, of course. He was a complete loser. Karl Marx, complete loser. Poor as dirt, poor as a church mouse, but believed somewhere at some time he would be judged by the world, by something else. Irresistible certitude. Excuse me, I have actually skipped a paragraph there, possibly because I love those two words, irresistible certitude. So let's go back. My music, divine essence of the word, inspires an imperious desire within you to raise yourself up. It awakens everything that has been sleeping, resuscitating everything that was dead, and opens the sealed stones of the tombs. I cause all your words to explode so that through your prayers you may arrive at the domain of the inconceivable where the where rules the miracle of vacuity. The miracle of vacuity, the idea of God as a negation. God is not God. God is not God. God is not God. This eternal negative theology, way of getting to God by looking at the emptiness. The miracle of vacuity. Me, I know, for I have seen and experienced the Creator, thus I simply announce Him. I transport the irresistible call of consciousness. I am the awakening, the miracle that takes place within your being. Irresistible certitude, when you answer my call, each of your actions is like an order I give you. You no longer harbour any doubt. You strive to act, think, love, live, and desire in full accord with divine will. Love is worth the pain of living. Everything is achieved in calm, meditation, kindness, and joy. I come from an inconceivable golden egg in which being and non-being are only undifferentiated light. I am the highest realization of your psyche, your thought that has been finally become androgynous, or that has finally become androgynous. This idea of yourself somewhere else, that's you meeting with the female or the male, your gender opposite, becoming both androgynous. I free you from the boundaries of male and female. The circle of celestial clouds surrounding me is nothing other than your exploded azure brain. I erase the frontiers forever, from incarnation to incarnation, transformation to transformation, with certainty and constant joy. I allow you to be what you have always been, an angel, an emissary of God.